good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, as usual, once again, to an ELT Time MENA episode. We're really happy to have you with us this afternoon. This is, of course, our coffee break style Advancing Learning podcast series. And for each episode, I'm joined by an educator, a guest right here from the MENA region, the Middle East and North Africa. Together, we will engage in a 30 to 45-minute discussion on a contemporary topic of their choosing over a nice cup of tea. And today, I'm joined by, Rania, you're going to have to help me pronounce your surname because obviously I don't speak Arabic, so I probably don't have.
Yes, it's Rania El-Khayat.
Khayat, I thought it was.
Which means it means tailor in English.
Oh, it does. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So today we're joined by Rania, and she is the director of the English department at Nile University in Egypt. And she has been in the field of ELT in higher education since 2005, so very well experienced. She obtained her master's in English literature from Ain Shams University and her doctor of education in English language from the University of Glasgow. Her professional interests vary widely, I think, from student engagement. She's interested in methods of assessment and feedback, and she's also interested in mentoring new instructors, naturally in her position as director of the English language department. And her research, her interests are more focused on psychology, the psychology of language learning, both from the perspectives of the learner and from teachers as well. So good afternoon, Rania. It's a real pleasure to have you on the ELT Time MENA podcast today.
Good afternoon from Cairo, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you today and discuss such a topic today.
Yeah, thank you. So I have my tea. I have white peach is the flavor of the tea that I've got today. Rania, I know you don't have tea with you because it's a little late in the day there, but do you have a favorite tea?
As a tea drinker, I drink a variety of flavors. Probably the best two that I have is Earl Grey and English breakfast.
Yes, I think Earl Grey is quite popular in Egypt. Quite a few of the Egyptian guests have been drinking Earl Grey.
Yeah, it just has a very nice tinge to the tea itself. I don't drink it every day, but every now and then I just have this craving for an Earl Grey tea.
Yeah. Do you have it with lemon, Earl Grey?
No.
I think it's
just plain.
I think it's very popular.
I've never tried it this way. I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
So just a pinch of just a drop of lemon juice, or how do you take it?
A slice. People put a slice of lemon in there.
Okay.
I think it just takes a bit of the edge off of the bitterness.
Oh.
So yeah.
Definitely give it a try then. Okay. Thanks for the tip.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's what we're for. Okay, great. So the chat is open. If anybody has any questions or want to share, if they're having a cup of tea with us, good afternoon, Nada. I can see you there in the chat box. Any questions, or if you're having tea with us, please do share your favorite flavors with us, because we do like to see what people are drinking. Okay, so today the topic is called Returning to Campus. So I know in Egypt, the academic year has only just started. It started a little later than the rest of the region. I think it started for most people on the 1st of October. So they've been back for a couple of weeks. And I think by and large, most of Egypt, and I think probably most of the region now has returned back to the face-to-face classroom. So we're going to talk a little bit about Rania and her team's experience of going back to campus and some of the challenges and opportunities that they've faced. And we picked this topic because this weekend, Rania is planning a symposium, which has been organized by Nile University, which is covering this topic. And there's a whole bunch of academic talks and a plenary by yours truly. I will be there. So we're looking forward to seeing you all for that symposium, and I will advertise that so you can register and join us on Saturday. But we thought that this podcast would be a nice way to kind of introduce the symposium, introduce that topic, and think a little bit about some of the themes that might come up, some of the presentations that you might see, and I think delve a little bit deeper into Rania's personal experiences and her own thoughts, because the symposium is very often kind of one academic presentation after another. Whereas I think it's nice to actually kind of flesh that out a little bit and have a conversation. So that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. But before we get into the topic, Rania, we always like to introduce you. I introduced you in a bio, but it's nice to get to know you a little bit better. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who is Rania beyond the bio?
I think I've been in the field of education, as I said, since 2005, and I have worked at different universities. I have seen different people. And even sometimes the kind of students you face in each university is a little bit different. There's always a certain context wherever you work. So I have taught a variety of courses. I have coordinated a variety of courses. I've been engaged in even college, the English exam admission at the university. In the preparation, curriculum development. I mean, I've seen it all as an instructor and as an administrator or as an educator as well. As a person, I have a variety of interests. As a nerd, I'm a Potterhead, by the way. I love Harry Potter, and it's always it's always a very nice topic of discussion when you have Potterheads in class, or when they discover that also you're a Potterhead as well. This is very interesting. So we just kind of form a group of interests. And I like yoga and hiking, and I read a lot in academic and non-academic. I mean, I definitely had my MA in literature because of my love for reading and literature, and I didn't want the studying to end there at the university. And as someone who has been exposed to both the literature and the linguistic side of education, I think it enabled me to have a more well-rounded outlook. It's not just linguistics, and it's not just the humanities or literature. So I think that this actually enriched my experience as an educator.
Yeah, nice. And I mean, we've already touched immediately on this aspect of rapport with students. Finding out that they are interested in the same things that we are, and they don't see you as something alien. You're just this person that turns up like a robot to deliver classes, that you have interests outside of class, and it can snowball, right? They find out that you're interested in Harry Potter, and then they ask you questions, and they find out that you're interested in another author, and then maybe they'll go and explore that. And we've done a lot of things recently on this, developing a love of reading and a love of literature. And that comes from role models. And I guess this can help to start that snowball, right? Finding out. Definitely.
And it kind of gets the instructor-student relationship out of the classroom, so that we have similar interests. And you said that you're a human being with similar interests to us. You're not just an older person with different interests, and we feel that you are so far removed from our experiences. No, we can actually have some kind of common ground and start to build a relationship based on some such things. So yes,
sorry, no, I'm finished.
Yeah, go ahead. That's okay. It's okay.
I was going to say, and then they come to class, and then they say things like, "Oh, have you seen the new? What's the new one called? The Beasts of something."
Fantastic Beasts. Fantastic. It was the Crimes of Grindelwald, I think, or Dumbledore's Secrets.
Dumbledore's Secrets. That was one. Here in Dubai, actually, you'll like this, because here in Dubai they've been re-releasing the old Harry Potters. So every few months they've been coming out, and I think we've now got to the fourth one. A few weeks ago we watched number 3, and I think number 4 is coming soon. So we're rewatching it in the cinema. It's really nice. My wife and I.
I'll be completely frank and say that I prefer the books to the movies. I mean, I've read the books, I've listened to the audiobooks, and I've watched all the movies, but there's something always magical about reading the book. It gives you, it opens a vista for your own imagination, for you to add your own touch instead of just being a passive viewer of what's already there.
Absolutely, yes. I remember as a kid, I really liked The Lord of the Rings, and I remember reading the books when I was 8 or 9. And I remember watching the movies and thinking, I'm sure my imagination version of this book is so much better than this. Even though the movies are stunning and they're enjoyable.
Indeed, they exerted a stupendous amount of effort and dedication to create such movies. But still, I mean, there's something, and always the imagination can stretch far beyond what a movie can give you.
Yeah, because it takes you so much
sometimes even beyond the book.
Yes, I mean, you think about the length of that book. You cannot read it in one sitting. So I think, I would read a chapter, and then your mind is playing over that chapter, and you're thinking about what's coming next, and you're thinking about how to embellish the imagination of what it looks like, where they're in the forest and how that would look and how it's described. Whereas when you watch the movie, they kind of squash all that into kind of like sometimes just a couple of seconds. It's like, here's the castle, and it's like, oh, okay, I had
Yeah,
so much
yeah,
time to think about it.
exactly,
It's really nice.
exactly.
Okay, well, thanks for telling us a little bit about yourself. It's really nice to find out some of your interests and get to know you a little bit better. So let's move on to the symposium itself. So you're organizing, it's the first annual ELT Symposium for Nile University. It's taking place this Saturday, the 29th. So can you tell us a little bit more about the symposium? Why have you guys decided to hold a symposium in the first place?
And as an educator or as a practitioner researcher, because I'm interested in combining both practice and theory and research. So hello, everyone. So I thought it would be nice if we can gather together as the English department at the university and meet researchers and practitioners from around the world and exchange ideas. So from one angle, we are exchanging experiences and research. And on the other, we are expanding and we are listening to other departments from other universities. So we are expanding, we are getting heard as instructors, because usually the English department is of lesser interest in a university. It's not a faculty, it's just a program.
Yeah.
So we are trying to stretch out and find our footing and meet people who are actually doing research from other countries in language education. And they are telling us about our practice. And one interesting thing that I have been encountering when I meet people from around the world is that we have common, not just interests and we are basically teaching the same thing, but we are actually encountering the same problems from developing and developed countries. And that was actually an eye-opening experience for me. It's nice to see that you're not alone, that it's not just in Egypt, that people in the UK or people in Saudi Arabia or people in Taiwan or Thailand are encountering the same probably administrative problems or classroom management problems or so on. So it's not just about theory, but it's practitioners meeting together, discussing their experiences based on theory. I guess that was the purpose. And I'm very happy to be able to do this because for the first time, I feel that I am in charge or I am making change, and I'm doing that along with my team members. So we are all actually looking forward to the event, and we are looking forward to the presenters and their very interesting topics that they are going to present on Saturday, inshallah.
Yeah, nice. So it's a platform, a networking kind of event. Yeah, it's nice. I like it. And obviously I've done lots of these over the last couple of years, so I love doing them. I think they're really nice. I think it's really great for people to, like you just said, get together, share their experiences. It's a kind of level playing field. And again, just like you said, understanding that you're not alone, and that the challenges that you face, and sometimes the things that you've encountered that are positive as well along the way, are shared by other people as well. That it's not just you that's going through this. And it's nice that you say that you feel that it's the same irrespective of where you are in the world. I think a lot of people think like, oh, they don't have a hard time like us in Europe or in America. It's nothing like this. They've got their own contextual challenges, I'm sure. But a lot of those challenges are probably very similar.
Exactly.
And especially because COVID was so global. It wasn't just, restricted to one area or region. There's one session I think that delves into how COVID impacted on different parts of the world in different ways, and I think that here in Dubai, we didn't get locked down really for that long. The government tried to kind of open us up quite quickly, mass testing, mass vaccinations, kind of get the economy moving. And I know one of the speakers is kind of reflecting on, I think it's Bangladesh, and the longer the lockdowns, the greater loss of learning, the different challenge that created. So it'll be interesting to see how those experiences are similar and how they are different, definitely. We've kind of delved into the next question a little bit, actually. So before we look at some of the challenges and opportunities from your perspective, why did you pick this particular topic? I mean, when we run symposiums, there's lots of different topics that we could choose from. I'm assuming this was probably a team. You probably came together with the team and chose the title and the topic itself. But why did you come up with this particular one?
Because it's particularly relevant to many contexts. For Nile University, for the English department specifically, the English courses were online for more than 2 years. I mean, we were the last people to join the face-to-face classes. We were a bit hesitant to join in because we teach all the students and we have so many classes, more than any other faculty at the university. So we were a bit careful of exposing ourselves and the students to meet on a face-to-face basis. So we stayed online for around 2 years, and the last semester we were mostly online, and then we gradually started to meet the students face-to-face. So we thought that this would be a very relevant topic because the COVID had a huge impact on the learning experience everywhere. So we wanted a topic that would be relevant to people around the world and particularly relevant to us. And I don't think that, or hopefully, we will not be talking about something like that because we will be back to the old normal and we will not be discussing this. So COVID had a huge impact, and it did provide a lot of challenges and opportunities, one of which is that we will be able to have the symposium online without people frowning at the idea. Before COVID, to have an online symposium or an online conference was a little bit unheard of. Yes. I mean, that would be, people would question the quality of who would do such a thing. It's always face-to-face, but now it's normal and actually more convenient in some cases. So let's just seize the opportunity to talk about COVID before we stop talking about it altogether, but hopefully.
Yes, and it feels a little strange, and I don't know whether that's because I am in Dubai, but I feel like COVID almost doesn't get talked about at all anymore here. It's like, oh yeah, that's like so 2021, like we don't talk about that now. But it is still very relevant. It's still having an impact on a lot of people's lives. I read an article in the newspaper, one of the British newspapers, yesterday about, I think there was a collection, 2,000 stories of people who had long COVID and the impact that that's having. So they had COVID 2 years ago, and they're still having health problems. It had a social impact on their lives and their families and all sorts of things. So it's not something that's gone away. It is still something that's quite relevant. But I think you're right. I think it's good to talk about the fact that we've all gone back face to face. But there are some things that have changed. Like you said, it's still okay to do things online. Symposiums are one. I'm sure some people will want to do some form of online, blended types of learning and keep aspects of learning, teaching and learning online as well. I think that's going to be pretty normal. But yeah, I think, before it kind of fades away, let's have a really good conversation. And I really like the fact that you're looking at both sides. So we're going to look at each in turn because you're looking at challenges. And I think there's been a real focus on the challenges that COVID has created because there's been a lot and it's been very impactful on teaching and learning. But like we just said, people in general. But this idea of opportunities as well, that it's given us new ideas, it's given people new skills. It's thrown up, I think, a lot of opportunities. So let's look at each in turn. Let's look at the challenges first. Let's start with the difficult points. From your point of view, what have been some of the challenges that you and your team have faced going back to campus more recently? Sorry, and if you have something else you wanted to add based on what I just said, please feel free as well, of course.
I think one of the major challenges of going back on campus is that we have, in a way, started to get comfortable with the idea of teaching online. And the fact you're shifting everything back to the old way was somehow challenging for some people because, as we said, the challenge can be an opportunity for some people. For instance, teaching online was convenient for mothers of young children, for example. So now you are asking them to get to switch back and find a way to take their kids somewhere, make sure that they are safe and sound while they go back and teach. It was convenient for those, for example, who did not have to commute a long way. So getting back, and the same applies to the students, getting them back and asking them, you know what, it was working well online and we were doing fine and we survived, but although we liked it, we have to go back to the old way. So the transition from the new normal to the old normal, as we say, was a little bit of a challenge. And as a director, I faced that because I would get the comments from the students and from the instructors. Do we really have to go back? Can we like make some courses online and other on campus? And the same questions from the students. Why don't we have online classes? We have to stay very late on campus. Why not take it online? So the idea that you need to get them back. Yes, the idea that we have to get them back from this to the old system was a little bit of a challenge. And at the same time, it was an opportunity to gain back student engagement that is, I think it's invaluable to see face-to-face interaction with the students. So there is the challenge and there is the opportunity. It depends. It depends on yourself if you look at it as a challenge or an opportunity.
So I have I guess it's a bit of a devil's advocate question for you, I guess. In terms of, because there's been a lot of talk about kind of going back, and I don't think that we can really go back. I think it's still always moving forward, but coming back into the face-to-face classroom, do you think that most teachers want it to be like it was pre-COVID, or do you think that they want it to be different? I don't know, it's a difficult question.
I think, as I said, after you move away from the transition period and you start to get used to it, that this is it and this is normal, you meet the students, you start to get used to the positive things of face-to-face classes. And I did meet instructors and students who say that it's actually better. Yes, it might have been convenient. We did not have to wake up early to commute, and if we have late classes and we're sitting home relaxed, I can take the class on the couch with my pet, wearing anything I like. No one can see me. But still, students and instructors feel that it is invaluable to meet the instructor or to meet the students face-to-face and to interact together and have a rapport and to meet your colleagues and sit with them physically and work together on the activities and get their moral support sometimes in speaking activity or something like that. Yeah. So even those who thought of it as a challenge, getting back as a challenge, they looked at the opportunities that the face-to-face classroom is presenting.
Yeah, and I think that's also reflected by Nada in the comments, saying that.
Yes, I think. She feels that Nada is saying very valuable things. Thank you for your participation, Nada. And yes, they got used to the online environment because it's more convenient. It's not beneficial, and they admit that it's not beneficial. It's not academically to them, but it's just convenient for them to take it at their own pace, to skip class, to like nod off during the lecture. No one would notice. Things like that.
Yeah, I remember saying probably about a year ago that I think one of the biggest challenges post-COVID is going to be, how do we take the positive aspects of face-to-face learning, interaction, communication, rapport, spending time with your peers, all of these types of things that are really important, as you just mentioned, but also take the positive aspects of online learning, not just online learning, but learning in different ways. And how do we merge them together in the future to make a better version of teaching and learning? Because I do think that there is a danger of just kind of going like, cool, it's safe from a health and safety point of view to go back to class. So let's just kind of go back to class and deliver lectures again and kind of do it exactly as we used to do. We kind of we got students through back in the day. Let's just do that again. And I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity. I don't know. Do you agree with that? I mean, you're a director, so you've obviously really engaged with this particular question, I'm sure.
I'm not sure I get your point. Are you asking that we miss an opportunity of teaching using technology in the online class? I mean, making use of the online class?
So, I mean, I guess maybe I'm moving forward into the opportunities part, but some of the good things that came out of that period of time in terms of teaching and learning. Yeah, and yes, it was very challenging. Certainly the transition, incredibly challenging for most teachers. But I think once people got into it, I'm sure there were lots of opportunities, and there was people can probably look back and say, like different students learned in different ways than I expected them to, because we were doing different things. For example, I don't know, it could be students that had special educational needs could interact with content in different ways, and I never would have presented it to them because I would have just lectured it in a classroom. Now I've given them flipped classrooms, I've given them opportunities to watch videos in their own time so they can watch it 2 or 3 times, this type of thing. So there's lots of opportunities. I guess the question is, how do we balance that out, I think is probably was the question.
I think the online classes did offer a lot of opportunities for the instructors and the students. I mean, we all had to somehow forcefully learn new things that we might not have learned in a different situation. But because we were forced into the situation of safety and lockdowns and everything, we had to catch up with technology and learn new ways, and sometimes collaborate together to teach ourselves, to teach the team how to make use of technology and exchange ideas. I know what, I found an application that the students can, if you just use the QR code, and then they start interacting and so on. So it was a learning opportunity for us and the students. And I think that there are things that will stay in the face-to-face class. I mean, the fact that there is the opportunity to give the students assessments at their own pace, for instance, that will still exist. Making use of learning management systems in a wider manner than on a wider scale than we were used to, that would offer students the chance to have extra material and extra practice that would still be monitored by, for example, the institution or the instructor or whatever. So I think that some things will stay even in the face-to-face classrooms when it comes to technology, and some of the applications that we still use in the face-to-face class because it offers a chance of a better interaction. It breaks the monotony of just listening to me and listening to videos, and we have this music and animations and so on. So I think that online classes offered us all opportunity to make use of things that some of us, not all of us, but some of us had no idea they existed. And sometimes, even though most institutions, for example, had learning management systems like Moodle and Canvas and so on, still they did not make use of all the benefits that such learning management systems offered. We had to learn that such options existed, and we used them on the correct scale in order to understand how beneficial they were. So yes, of course, the online classes did offer us a lot of opportunities as students as well as educators that will still stay with us even when we go back to the face-to-face class.
Yeah, nice. Okay, good. Okay, so in the symposium, we kind of moved on to the opportunities a little bit. But let's think about the opportunities that we've been talking about. Let's think about the symposium itself, because there's lots of sessions that are focusing on the opportunities aspect. What are some of the sessions that you're looking forward to seeing, which are around, could be either challenges or opportunities?
There is one that I'm looking forward to about students' willingness to communicate, because it was a pressing issue in the online classes. And although you would think that anonymity and staying behind the screen would give students courage to speak out and interact in class, in some cases that wasn't the case. It was very surprising for me. Just like stare at the screen, guys. Anyone like to discuss this with me? So I think that this presentation by Imran would look at instructors' perceptions regarding the willingness to communicate they faced in the online class, and whether this changed when students came back on campus. And I think that it's very interesting. Will it increase or decrease, and what are the reasons for such things? I think this is a very interesting one that I'm looking forward to. Another one is by Rihab Hassan. It's called, it discusses grit and persistence and the effect on self-efficacy and motivation. And whether students were able to, and the context was, I think, KSA, whether students had the grit to continue during online classes or not, and did that have an impact on their motivation and self-efficacy, something like that. Is very interesting, and it can be looked at as an opportunity or a challenge depending on the results of the research. So really, I don't think that we can really have a very strict, clear-cut borderline between challenges and opportunities. Any of the discussions would pose a challenge or an opportunity in different contexts, where according to the results of what they found in their research. I'm looking forward actually to see, because I've just looked at the abstracts, I'm looking forward to listen and watch their presentations and see what they were able to come up with, whether online classes actually, if it improved grit and had a positive impact on self-efficacy, then this is an opportunity. If it had a negative impact on that, then it would be a challenge. And we need to look at it from another perspective to turn it into an opportunity.
Yeah. The willingness to learn, I think, I think a lot of people probably struggle to get students to communicate, certainly in the early days, getting them to communicate in an online environment. And I think that was probably true irrespective of grade or even probably language level ability. You know, they were all kind of, like I said, hidden behind the screen. And you think that that would give them that sense of anonymity, and that they would be like, oh, I'm not going to be judged. But I guess that they feel like everybody still knows who they are. They recognize their voice. They know who's speaking. And I guess that there's not that, like, I guess perhaps that highlights the importance of body language in terms of how we communicate. Because when you're communicating online, there's a lot of hidden meaning behind what you're saying that the viewer or the person you're communicating with cannot see. So they don't know whether or not you raised an eyebrow or whether or not your tone dips for a particular reason. You know, they can't see how nervous you are. If you're doing speaking tests, for example, online. So perhaps that made them a bit more fearful. You know, I'm going to be judged even harsher than I would be, you know, in the face-to-face classroom. And there's both sides, I guess, because when you're in the face-to-face classroom, you feel like everyone's looking at you, and then you're nervous because you feel like if I make a mistake, they're all gonna, I don't know, maybe say something or
look at me and judge me. Yes.
Judge me, yeah. But it's true in the online setting as well. So yeah, I mean, for you in particular, how did you and your team overcome this idea of communication when you were going through online classes? Did you have any strategies?
I did not have a lot of opportunity to teach online. I only taught one class because as a director, I was focusing more on the administrative side of things, making sure that everything is okay for the rest of the people. But in my experience, it was very, very challenging. And I think that you mentioned something very important, is that when we are online, because we do not see facial expressions and the rest of body language, they just see like the top, less than the top half of ourselves. There is, or a certain kind of persona is formed for the student and the instructor. And I did face some encounters where students would perceive the instructor as someone who is totally different from what that person is. And they did, when they met face to face, just you're totally different. I mean, they misconstrue the tone of voice and the facial expressions as someone who's aggressive or too harsh. We did face this a lot. And when they actually met face to face in a one-to-one meeting, they found that it's totally different.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would receive complaints about instructors who really are you sure that what you're saying is true? Mm-hmm. But it turns out that the online persona, it gives the student certain impression of a person who probably does not exist.
Yes.
And because there isn't room for interaction after class, for example, or before class, it's just you meet them and then you log off and that's it. They do tell each other and the idea spreads, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah.
For in my experience with the students, I felt deprived because I think in most of the classes for that course, the students would not even have a profile picture. I was speaking to aliens. If I met any of these students in the corridor, I wouldn't recognize them. And I felt very deprived. I wasn't a happy experience. I was able to teach the course and I was able to interact, but I don't think that we would recognize each other if we met on campus. And this is very disappointing to me.
Yeah.
And how to overcome this? I think you have to dedicate time during the online classes to actually get to meet the students and have some kind of rapport and middle ground. You cannot just start the semester as an online persona and move on. It might work, and it did work for some people, but it didn't work for other people.
Yeah.
And so we in an online class, you have to dedicate time for rapport building and breaking the ice and making sure that they understand who you are, and the same with the students. those completely silent students who are not interacting, you might misconstrue that as someone who is lazy or someone who is amotivated, whereas in real life, it is totally different. So I think that this was the challenge, and if I would ever get back online, I would have to dedicate time just to meet the students for a non-academic purpose, get to know them, and feel that they are human beings and that I am a human being as well, not just a face behind the screen.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that actually, because we're thinking about the opportunities side a little bit. And we were talking about some of the sessions that are coming up in the symposium. Obviously, I've looked through them all, so I know what's coming up. But yeah, one of the ones that I was really interested in is this idea of more holistic approaches to teaching and learning. And that incorporates some of the things that you've just been talking about there. This need to see students as something more than just learning robots or, knowledge acquirers, and, they just pass through your course and then off they go. And certainly, as you said, in the online environments, very difficult to get to know them, very difficult to figure out personalities. When you think about a class, I think about when I was teaching classes over a whole academic year, your student at the beginning of the year and your student at the end of the year is almost two different people. And not just because they've learned the content of the units along the way, but because their personality has been shaped by you and the class itself, all aspects of the class, their peers. They come in at the beginning and sometimes they're bold, and then they level out, or sometimes they're shy and then they come out of their shells. All of these different types of things influence them. And I think that's what a lot of people have been quite disappointed about through the pandemic, and the way that approaches to online learning were implemented so quickly, is that people lost that. Like you said, you would walk past them in the corridor and have no idea who they are, instead of that, like, morning, miss, like, how are you today? This kind of thing, and you saying hi to your students and, whatever it is.
Yes, and Basma is saying something very important here, is that they were deprived also of interacting together. And this is very important, because peer interaction and peer influence in the class, if it's something positive, then it is something that was not compensated in the online class. They are still, yes, they did form WhatsApp groups, but it was more related to how to get this assignment done or how to do that. But the impersonal or the personal interaction they had together was definitely less in an online class. And this is a very good point to be added. Yes, thank you very much for adding that.
Yeah, I like this idea of holistic approaches to learning. And as you say, they're shaped by their peers. And if you're going to be shaped by your peers, you have to interact with your peers. You have to spend time with them, and you'd be surprised what they talk about outside of the classroom, and elements of class feed into those conversations, even if it's in a small way. So that's something I'm really looking forward to, that particular session. I really want to find out what their perspectives are. The other one that I'm really interested in watching, and this is something I have, I guess, background in, so it's probably why I'm most interested in seeing this particular session, is the one around developing female leadership. There's one towards the end of the day.
I'm interested in this one as well. As a female leader, it's definitely very relevant to most of us.
Absolutely.
But why are you interested, maybe?
I mean, well, I've got a background in development, and I've done a lot of non-educational female leadership projects. I've worked in development for quite a while. So I'm really interested in this idea. And I've been doing lots of things for Macmillan around female leadership as well. So as an advocate, as an ally, I would say that I'm really interested to see what people are researching and taking it beyond discussions. I think you can do advocacy work, but actually seeing people integrate that into research, coming up with evidence, publishing papers, publishing books, and pushing this forward, I think is a really good thing. And I'm really interested to see what these guys got to say about this. So that's something I'm also really looking forward to. And I'm sure people, the guys who are in the chat, I'm sure they will be fascinated as well by this particular topic. Okay, so I mean, you obviously, we could talk about this if you want to. Do you want to talk about female leadership? We've got a couple of minutes. I mean, you are obviously a female leader. You're in that particular position. I'm sure that means a lot to you. I'm sure you're very passionate about that particular topic. I mean, do you want to share anything, or it's up to you? You don't have to.
I think I think talking about female leadership is very important, especially in the field of English language teaching, because it is a field that is dominated by females. We have very few males working in the field. And we do develop throughout our years. And I was not always a director. This is my third year as a director. But before that, I was a course coordinator. And before that, I was just an instructor. So the idea that to have understanding of what it means to be a leader as a female in a field that is dominated by females or not, it doesn't matter. But there are some tips that we always need to hear from the experts and the researchers who exerted effort on such a topic in order to see whether we can improve as female leaders or not. And we are female leaders in sometimes interacting in a community that looks at female leaders as inferior. That's not always the case, definitely, but sometimes it is. Especially, as I said, that the English department is itself sometimes considered as a department of a lesser value than departments that do belong to faculties. So being a female leader, I don't know whether we can, and that's why I'm interested to hear this particular presentation, because I want to see whether there is a difference in male and female leadership when it comes to English language teaching, and whether there are different tips, or is it context related, or is it universal? I'm not sure, to be honest. But I do look forward to hear what they have to say and what tips they can give, because when I was in touch with the speakers, and they told me that they would be engaging the attendees and asking them and taking a look at their own experiences, not just as an administrator or a coordinator, but as a teacher who is a leader of the class. She's still a female leader. So
yes,
it's actually very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm really interested in the topic, because when we think of leadership, we think of people in a higher role. Just our own
exactly.
Experience. You're a director. You're in a position of leadership's about power, right? So you're in a position of power. You've got people below you. We think of that as leadership, but leadership is, I think, more all-encompassing than that. So teachers are leaders in their classroom. There are particular female leaders that they're trying to inspire within the class itself. And that could be of any age. If you're teaching primary, it's how you interact differently with boys and girls. And that can be on a subconscious level. And it is a lot of the time. But what messages do you continuously send to your students about whether or not they can assume? And it doesn't have to be a leader of the class. It's just leadership roles within activities, within collaborative things that they're doing. Who is doing what and why and when, and analyzing that and having conversations with students about, well, who took charge and why did they take charge? Did they take charge because they're female or male, or was there other reasons why you took charge? Did you take charge because you've actually done some background reading on that and you felt like you had more knowledge than the rest of your group? So you felt like, I need to step up because I know about it. Didn't matter about the gender itself. So there's lots of ways of looking at leadership. And I guess then thinking about that within a kind of broader educational sphere, I guess it's about who makes decisions. That's why I'm interested in leadership. So I think there are lots. I mean, I've just done lots of trainings in Egypt, and I must have met 600 teachers, and 550 of them were probably female. But what position, which is great, and I love spending time with them. And they're really enthusiastic. They're coming up with great ideas. We're doing training, but it's thinking about, well, what roles do they have? Who are they influencing? Who's above them? Who's making decisions that affect them? So you could have, I don't know, you could have 10 faculty department heads who are all female, but if the minister of education of a country is male, then what power does he have over them? There's all these different dynamics and then power. So I'm like I said, I come from a development background, so I'm fascinated by all of these types of questions and
it does open a lot of doors of inquiry, leadership versus authority, and the thin line between being a leader and being someone in charge, and a leader working with a higher administration who is perhaps opposed to the idea of having a woman leader. It does open a lot of opportunities and questions.
Yes, a lot. I did a session actually in Jordan about leadership, looking at how students can become leaders. And we looked at the differences between managers and leaders. and some of the attributes they have, some of the styles that they employ. And we were looking at the fact that, well, a manager can get people to do things, but have they actually led them? They've just made them do tasks, and that task might achieve a particular goal. But if we're looking at leadership, were they personally invested? Did they get something out of it? All these different types of things. So yeah, I'm fascinated by this particular topic. I could talk about it all day, I'm sure. Okay, so we've looked at some of the sessions, and it looks like there's going to be some really interesting discussions. Certainly there'll be some good questions from the both of us, I think, to those presenters. But I'm going to bring us toward the end because we've done 45 minutes. And I'm going to finish with the final question, which is always the same. And it is, what is your favorite teaching tip? Obviously, you are, I mentioned in your bio that you're interested in mentoring. So I'm sure you have lots of tips that you give to new instructors who join the department or other teachers in conferences and symposiums. It doesn't have to be about the topic we've been discussing today. It can be anything you want. But what is your favorite teaching tip?
I think my favorite tip is that the most important thing to consider as a teacher is that you are not just meeting someone for a course in order to teach him or her specific things. You are here to attempt to transform the students into a better human being. As it's not just that you're teaching grammar or listening or how to write an essay or how to give a presentation, but you are dealing with a human being, and you are hoping to transform the students into a better version of him or herself that he or she will discover. It's not that we are going to impose a certain image on the students to become, but we are here to help the student become the better or the best version of himself or herself. You cannot imagine the insecurities that many of the students are suffering from. They really do not believe in themselves, and they do need some sort of guidance that you are learning this in order to become a better you. And if we feel that we have managed to succeed with even one student in class, that someone feels better about himself or herself while they are learning, then we have accomplished what we are here to do, to educate and transform students, not just to teach them and show them how to write or how to speak or pronunciation and things like that.
Yes, and I think that's pretty much what we've been talking about, this holistic approach.
Exactly.
English for people. And I saw a comment from Basma in there, which I guess said the same thing, like this whole learning experience. And yes, those aspects are important. They need to learn vocabulary and grammar and practice skills, but they're doing that to, like you said, as a stepping stone to discover who they are, what they're interested in, what they want to do, and how to be the best version of themselves, I think, in the future. Which I think is a nice tip. So perfect. Thank you very much. So I've come to the end of my cup of tea. My peach tea has come to the end for this afternoon. So I'm going to kind of bring it to the end. Thank you to everybody who has joined us. There's been some really interesting comments in the chat box. So thanks to you guys for sharing your ideas as well. There's been some nice comments about how people have got students to interact, which is really nice. It's been fun to read them. Rania, thank you very much for your time today and for joining us on the podcast.
It was a pleasure being here, Nathan, and I'm looking forward to your talk and all the presentations at the symposium. And I'm inviting everyone who attended here to come and join us and see the interesting presentations that will take place, inshallah, on Saturday. Thank you very much. Thank you for the Macmillan team.
You're welcome. It's been a real pleasure to have you with us. And as you just said, we're really looking forward to the symposium on Saturday. I will post the link to register on the Macmillan Education MENA Facebook page and my own LinkedIn. I will post it on my own LinkedIn as well. So if you're connected to me either on Facebook or LinkedIn, you can register for that. It's going to be via Zoom. And we will see you on Saturday. I'm going to be doing the introductory plenary, and then we've got, I think, how many presentations you got? 14? 14 presentations going on a variety of topics. So have a look at the schedule and choose the ones that are most interesting to yourself. For now,
thank you very much.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed this discussion today. And of course, as always, go and check out the other ELTea MENA episodes on the website. But from Rania and myself, we wish you all a wonderful afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Thank you very much, Rania.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.